I'm a school psychologist. I've been a school psychologist for about 7 years, and I changed fields. I used to be an interior designer, but I was always interested in psychology and development of children, and I decided I wanted to be a psychologist in a school so I could have the same hours as my own kids.
I am a nanny because when I first got out of college, I decided to nanny while I looked for a job, and I fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the families that I work for, so I stuck with it, and here I am 8 years later.
I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I'm the mother of 7 kids, and I graduated from University of Texas with a degree in finance, and got married a week after I graduated. So in Texas, I was an old maid.
Women are expected to do a lot and be a lot, including being great domestic goddesses and also having careers and juggling everything.
They take on more of the responsibilities of the children and the home, and sometimes that prevents them from pursuing other options. But I think some of that is that they do to themselves, and I think there needs to be more of an expectation that to run a family, the husband either needs to step up to the plate, or there needs to be other people in a woman's life to help her out, whether it's grandparents or even hiring a nanny or someone else to help with the children. It's a huge aspect of my identity. I actually take a lot of pride in being a woman. I feel like we have a better understanding of others, and we're much more aware of the other people that are in our lives and concerned about them.
My role as a woman, I enjoy being feminine, doing womanly things, and I enjoy the opportunity to do manly things as well, whatever we think of as traditionally manly or womanly things, but there definitely are things like that, and I like wearing pink.
I don't know. I think, well, this is going to sound terrible, but I think women are better people in general.
Like higher morals.
I think we have a more diverse intelligence. And I just think we're better. And I'd rather be a woman than a man. Yeah. I think that women aren't taken as seriously in the business world. I don't have any firsthand experience in that, but I know friends that do. And that still exists to this day. Men get the higher jobs and they get paid more.
I think historically it's been the reverse, and women had been at a disadvantage, right? They didn't have the right to vote, they couldn't work, they couldn't rise to the same level that men can, and I feel like we are getting a lot closer to parity. I think statistically that's not true yet. I think men still earn more than women for a given job. But I think that's on its way to changing, definitely on its way to changing, and it's because I do feel like we are punishing and disadvantaging our boys relative to our girls, right? I think there are a lot of programs for girls, for women, to boost them and help them be all they can be, and I think those programs should be targeted toward everyone, have everyone be all they can be. So I think women are at an advantage in this day and age.
Yeah.
I think she relished her position as a stay-at-home mom. She was that generation where that was what she hoped and expected to do, and I don't think she wanted to do more of it.
Going back to what I said before, I think today there's a lot more expected from women.
Right.
You can't just be a housewife. You have to take care of the home, and you better have some sort of business on the side that you do. Whether you go to work every day or you have your own company you run from home, it's, you're expected to be and do everything.
Yeah, and do, equally as great at both.
Yeah, exactly. So that's different. Whereas before, you could just be a housewife.
Yeah.
Not that that's not hard.
Right. Yeah.
in general, raising children and all that. But.
There isn't as much of a stigma to be an unmarried woman who is pursuing a career. I think for my own mother's generation, women were almost looked as a failure if they didn't have a family, or there were terms that they would use like spinster or old maid that are derogatory, that are meant to put a woman down if she never gets married. And I think there isn't such a strict idea that a woman has to be married and has to have children to lead a fulfilling life. There are many women that are very successful and independent in politics and sports and in all areas.
I mean, there's women that, run companies and, we're probably going to have a woman president very soon. So it's possible, but it's harder.
Right.
And those women are also deemed as not as feminine usually. And
Yeah.
so it's just, it's not. So no, there's no, I don't think everyone's equal.
Feel that women have a lot of opportunities, especially if they're ambitious and hardworking. Gender inequality, I think of it more like gender differences. There are fields that draw more women and fields that draw more men. And when a woman enters a male-dominated field, I think it can be very difficult for her because the men in the field, and even the women too probably, judge her for maybe being unfeminine. And that's definitely a big challenge, but I think if a woman is strong enough and isn't willing to let it bother her, she can be very successful.
I don't have a major problem with having the inequality at the top because I think it's kind of natural, right? That the women have the babies and stay home and take care of the babies. Not that they should have to. But I think there are going to be a large group of people that choose to do that, like myself, right? I'm well educated. I could be somebody who rises up in the hierarchy of the corporate structure, but I'm choosing not to. So I think that should be reflected, right, in the who rises to the top.
Yeah.
I think forcing it is not right. Talking about women that choose to stay home, that's going to affect the statistics, and I think that's a point that isn't necessarily addressed, right? What percentage of people work because they choose to work versus have to work, and I just think if you're trying to go for statistical equality, I don't think that makes much sense. I heard in Sweden they force men to take paternity leave when they have a baby just so that the women aren't disadvantaged when they take maternity leave.
Oh, wow.
Which is just counterproductive, right? It's just not productive. It's just saying she's got a uterus and she's producing babies, so you're not allowed to work because that would be unfair.
Right.
And while it may be unfair, it's also just silly to punish the man for not having a uterus.
And I'm not sure if this is just related to gender issues, but a woman needs to assert herself and not assume and put herself in the role of the female role. She should accept responsibilities and take on responsibilities and not worry about what other people think of her. A good example is Hillary Clinton, who got a lot of negative feedback from the press and other politicians for wanting to be a strong female, because that goes against the stereotype of what is a woman, and it goes against the stereotype of femininity. And from my own experience, if you don't ask for what you want and go after what you want, you're not going to get it.
I just think you should treat each other as people, not as a man or as a woman. I think we're on a good path, and I'm hopeful for the way we're headed. I just would hate to see us overcorrect and coddle the women and boost them up at the expense of the men. So I just would want you to treat each other fairly, on both sides.